Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome to this North-Western Area Planning Committee meeting on the 21st of June. My name is Councillor Mark Durham. I am the chairman of this committee. Members, please turn your phones off and please, it's £10 Councillor Morley into the charity box.
I've got the charity.
Have you? Members?
My niece is riding for Team GB in Italy this summer, but on horses.
Well, there you go. She's now duly sponsored by Morley Skips. Members, we are streaming this live as well as recording, and by being present in this meeting, you're giving your consent to be recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I'll then invite you at the appropriate time. And please note, the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. And I will add a bit. Please do not repeat points or questions that have been already asked, because we don't want the meetings to go on until tomorrow morning. Item 2, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
No, everyone's present.
Brilliant, excellent, thank you very much indeed. Item 3, minutes. It's recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on, you're just going to look at the minutes. And the minutes are, apologies members.
24th of May.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, yes, it is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of May, and they are from page 7, are approved as true and accurate record. Those that were here. Can I have a proposal proposed by Councillor Thompson? Okay, thank you. Councillor Morley seconded. Item 4 on the agenda are declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest, members? No, thank you very much indeed. Excellent. Right, okay, so item 5 is reference 23/001-128/ land south of Bouncers, Wickham Hall Lane, Wickham Bishops. Members, you'll find this on pages 15 to 30. Mrs. Honey, you are taking us through this.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application that's made for full planning permission for a stable building with associated ancillary facilities and storage areas for hay and feed. The application follows a previously refused application, which I will discuss and talk through in a moment. So here we have the site location plan, so the site's edged in red and the other land ownership shown in blue. So the site is on the east of Wickham Hall Lane and just quite a bit north of Langford Road. At the moment it's currently in use as an agricultural field. There's also a local wildlife site known as Likely Wood and an ancient woodland here to the west, and Bouncers Farm is up here to the north just off of the plan. So here we have the proposed block plan, so you can see the stable building, and the area hatched is the grazing land, which is about 1.8 hectares that would support the feed for the horses. Sorry, I keep getting my keyboards mixed up. And this just shows the plan submitted with the arboricultural impact assessment. There's a small area of tree group 2 here that needs to be removed to facilitate the access. They're hawthorn trees, but given the amount of vegetation in the area, these wouldn't offer a significant amenity value to the area, so no concerns are raised in that respect. We have the proposed elevations with the materials. The floor plan, So there's a tack and feed room here, 5 stables, and then the hatching area shows that there's a mezzanine level above, which would also provide feed storage, and it could be accessed by a forklift lifting in from the double doors here, and then there's also a ladder to provide access to the area for day-to-day access for the feed. So this is some comparison plans. So the top application, the top elevation is the front elevation of the previously refused scheme, which concerns were raised in relation to the character and appearance of the area and also the countryside. This was the scheme originally submitted with the application. Officers raised concerns still with the dominance and scale of the building. So, and also overcome those concerns, the applicant has amended it and reduced the ridge height of the building from 5.6 metres down to 5 metres. So the overall reduction from the previous refuse scheme is 1.6 metres. So here just to show you that what was previously refused. So it was a U-shaped building, which quite a larger footprint. And then the full elevations, you had these gable projections that had and quite residential appearing windows, so that's now all been omitted from the scheme. Oops. So here we have some photos taken from Wickham Hall Lane, just to give you an idea of the setting of the site. So the application site is here, so the building would be set in right within the north of the site. This is a photo of the site access, and then some closer views of the application site. So here's an approximate location of where the stable building would be, and again just more images taken from along Wickham Hall Lane. So following the amendments to the design of the proposal, both throughout the application and in relation to the previously refused application, it's considered that the proposal now results in a development that on balance would not cause demonstrable harm to the character and appearance of the site or the countryside. And it's also considered that the updated information in respect to the grazing land and feed storage demonstrates that the long-term welfare of the horses would be maintained. Therefore, officers view that the previous reasons for refusal have been overcome, and the application is recommended for approval subject to the conditions set out. And sorry, Chairman, I probably should have also noted there was a members' update in relation to this, just with some public comments that have already been addressed within the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have a public speaker? You're the agent, are you, sir? Yeah, if you would like to go and sit in the seat there. As you'll be aware, our public participation rules are that you have 2 minutes from when you start to speak. And 2 minutes is 2 minutes, not 2 minutes and 5 seconds, or well, it can be 1 minute and 55 seconds, but not more than 2 minutes.
Oh, grand.
So,
thank you.
Please go ahead when you're ready.
Good evening, Chair and members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a Chartered Town Planner and Agent for this planning application. As set out, the application follows an initial proposal of the same description, which was refused under delegated powers. It seeks to overcome the reason for refusal of that application. The proposal has also been amended further, and supplementary information provided during the application process to address matters arising from the officer's initial assessment of the proposal. Whilst not a planning matter, I thought it would be useful to set out the applicant, Mrs Green's interest in the site for the avoidance of doubt. The applicant is the mother of the owner of Bouncers Farm, Mrs Cox, which is contiguous with the application site of Likely Field. When Bouncers Farm was purchased by Mr and Mrs Cox back in 2018, they set about renovating the house and pursuing their own development aspirations as a priority. This included stabling for their own horses. Shortly after acquiring Bouncers Farm, Mr and Mrs Cox also acquired Likely Field on a separate title. A keen equestrian family, Likely Field provides an opportunity for Mrs Green and other wider family members to stable horses of their own on land owned by the family, but that is self-sufficient from Bouncers Farm. This negates them having to rent from a third party and will ensure that the family will have somewhere to stable horses indefinitely. I just wanted to mention the access as well, in terms of its, ability for horse boxes, etc. Obviously, the current lawful use of the site is agriculture, and I think you know, it should be looked at in those terms. Tractors, etc., would be using it potentially in terms of its current lawful use. Just in closing then, the refinement of the proposal which has taken place, not least because of collaborative working with officers, has resulted in them now feeling able to recommend approval when previously they did not. I really do think the finished product has tangibly benefited from the to and fro during the application process. Thank you very much.
That was very well rehearsed, sir. Very, very well done. Thank you very much indeed. Now, members, it's over to you, and I will excuse you if you're feeling a sense of déjà vu, because we've seen something very similar, haven't we, recently? But I saw Councillor Morgan first, and it is in your ward.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to say I'm completely puzzled by this application. As I understand it, it was obviously refused, and Mr. Chairman, you'll recall we were in fact called to a meeting with indeed the chairman of the council to discuss it, at which the decision to bring it before this application or this committee was made. And at that time, there seemed to be some comparison with the previous application to land north of Poplar Grove, or Poplar Grove Chase, which was passed at the last planning committee, and yet there seems to be no mention of that in the officer's papers. So I'd be interested to know what's happened there. And also, I mean, whilst the officers have recommended refusal, looking through their report, there seems to be every reason why they, recommended approval, there seems to be, moving through the report, every reason put forward as to why it should be refused. And I will ask members to just indulge me as if I just take us through 5.1.6, where it highlights that there's no ancillary link between the site of this property has been established. 5.1.7, there has been no information provided to adjust the need for the stables in this location. 5.1.8, in the opinion of the local planning authority, it's not possible to establish an ancillary link with any host dwelling, and the stables cannot therefore be considered as ancillary. 5.1.9, obviously the applicant doesn't know the land at Bounces Farm, although the agent has possibly helped out on that. Now, I know at 5.1.10 it says the previous concerns were not raised as a reason for refusal as part of the previous application. Well, my question really is, why not? Moving on from there, 5.2.5, Wickham Hall Lane is a narrow rural country lane and characterised by sporadic residential, and therefore this existing application site is a large field. And I put it to you, the agent mentioned horse box. I'd be interested to know our equine friends colleagues as to whether you would actually get a horse box down there with any degree of safety. And then going on to 5.2.6, the proposed development would introduce a large detached building into what is currently an undeveloped area of land. 5.2.7, well, I'll leave you to read that, but that's not particularly complimentary. 5.2.9, due to the significant separation of distance to any residential dwelling house, it is considered this results in a lack of visual link between any house. It would not appear to be any ancillary in scale to any existing development. And then going on to 5.4.3, where the proposal would consider utilising existing access. The County Council Highways Authority has been consulted and says that the additional information has not been provided as part of this application, and therefore, in fact, they're suggesting that there should be a two-lane or development of the roadway to prevent two-way passing traffic, and there should be a condition on the planning application. I mean, are we suggesting that the condition be put in that they actually widen the existing highway? I mean, I don't understand. But perhaps pièce de résistance, and perhaps to my mind the biggest dagger in the heart here is 5.5.11, where it suggested that great crested newts might be present on the site. So, Mr. Chairman, in view of all that and the comments of the parish council, I move that this application be refused.
Councillor Morgan, thank you. That sounded dangerously like a proposal. Is that seconded anywhere at the moment? Not at the moment, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Miss White. Sorry, Councillor Mrs. Patton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, actually, I know this site really well. I don't know the current owners, but I knew the previous owners. And I also have got an interest. I don't only ride horse, I also drive them. And the previous owners used to do a lot of things with the British Driving Society. And my horse box is an HGV horse box that carries 5 horses with a large living, and it's 12 metres long. And I've actually used the access road to access their place for the driving. So obviously when we drive, we take the horses and we take the carriage and we take everything else. So we put it all, we've got a winch, we put it on the same lorry. So that's not a problem. And I was actually going to say that I'm really pleased that we finally got a stable block that's down for approval. So I support the application. Thank you.
Okay, a different take. Any other members? Sorry, I didn't say anybody else wish to. Councillor Morley and then Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, it was only the access that was all the actual turning in point. Is there a clearer view of where it's going to turn in or be made, or is there an access already there?
I haven't got another photograph,
Okay.
I'm afraid, but we can put the...
So it'll be, I would imagine, a double 5-bar gate type to swing wide and get in.
The local highway authority is requesting that the...
Yeah. Normally, even a horse box with a trailer, the trailer usually follows the box. It's not like an Arctic, so they turn in quite easily. Okay, thank you.
I think, in fairness to Councillor Morgan, he did put quite a few questions. I don't know if you have answers for all of those, because I think it's only fair that you address them each point.
Thank you, Chairman. So in relation to the Poplar Grove application, that was an application that was supported previously by this committee for a stable building to house donkeys. I would say it only further supports this application in the sense that it's a stable building without an ancillary link to a residential use. It's slightly different in the sense that there was already an existing use on the, well, I'm going to say equestrian donkey use on the site, if that's considered the same. And so there was a previous use for that stable building. But in terms of the impact on the character and appearance and design of the building, I think they're similar in respect of what's being proposed here. In relation to the principle of development, so the paragraphs quoted are taken from the previous officer's report. I just thought it important to highlight to you all what the previous considerations were as part of that application. Unfortunately, whilst all that was set out in the officer's report, it wasn't listed as a reason for refusal of the application. So now, as part of this application, there's nothing new or any new material considerations that have come forward that would now mean that it's reasonable for the council to introduce a reason for refusal in this respect. That's as much comment as I can make on that, I'm afraid, because I wasn't the previous case officer and Mr. Lawrence wasn't here to be able to comment on why that was the case. But did you want me to pause on that point? No.
Well, I'm sure Councillor Morgan is going to want to come back, but I do follow his thinking in that there are numerous paragraphs that seem contrary to your final recommendation. You know, whether they were done by a previous officer or not, it's still there and in the public domain. And any decision that may be seen as being contrary to those could come into question. So I don't know, Councillor Morgan, if you'd like to comment.
Well, thank you, Chair. Well, yes. I mean, you really made my point for me. I mean, I'm just wondering how the decision made to approve this was made, considering all the particular concerns that have been raised previously.
So I think that covers off the principal argument for the council to introduce a reason for refusal now that wasn't introduced previously when nothing's changed. Then it does leave us a challenge appeal in relation to costs and unreasonable behaviour. Respect of the design, so a lot of the concerns previously were over the residential appearance of the building and also its scale. So at 5.2.11, I do discuss how the siting of the building hasn't changed in relation to the previous application, but how by reducing the scale of it significantly as well as the depth, the actual overall prominence of the building is reduced, so that harm's reduced. And then also by creating a more a building that's of more rural character, removes some of that concern in respect to the residential appearance and alien form in the countryside. Just checking.
Well, no, come back, Councillor Morgan, please.
Just checking that covers off that point. Did you?
No.
Yeah. 5. Just catching up. Was it the highways point that was next, I believe, wasn't it? So the local highway authority haven't objected to the application. They've just required that the access is upgraded to accommodate two-way vehicle movements. So not substantial works to the lane itself, and we're confident that can all be secured by way of condition and dealt with by those means. And just also make members aware that there's an application that a stables was approved at Bouncer's farm to the north as well. So, and that wasn't found to have any concerns in terms of vehicle movements for horse boxes. So, to say tried and tested to some degree in that location. And then in terms of the ecology impacts, the application's been supported by a preliminary ecological appraisal, and our ecological consultants are content that everything can be dealt with by a condition and sufficient mitigation is in place. I think that covers it all, hopefully.
Councillor
Thank
Morgan,
you.
does that satisfy your? Well, it probably doesn't, but does it?
Well,
answer
no,
your
it doesn't. I mean, I'm just looking at it. The reduction in size actually probably makes it more desirable of potential residential should that ever be seen with these rather nice trees around it. And I'm still curious about this condition about it becoming a two-lane highway. Can the officer advise how that is going to work?
Chairman, sorry, just finding the condition. So the condition is prior to the occupation, so to make sure that the access is in place before any use and any harm can occur. The existing field access shall be upgraded and reconstructed. Sorry, I'm reading the wrong one, I think. Bear with me 1 second, sorry.
Just involving the access.
Yeah, so it's just involving the access. So within the red line boundary, it would just need to be demonstrated that the access has been upgraded. In fact, it's not even a discharge condition, so they would just need to comply with that. And if they wasn't to comply with that condition, then of course they could be subject to enforcement action.
Sorry, so it's just the access that needs to be open to.
Yes, correct.
Right, Councillor Stevens, you were next, and then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. So we've got some things that have been altered in the revised application, and those deal with issues that were found before. And we've got some things that haven't and can't be altered. And we're saying that because those weren't given as reasons for refusal last time, we can't bring them in now. What would happen if we did, please? Thank you.
It could be deemed to be unreasonable behaviour by the council because this isn't something that was raised as part of a previous application. By not refusing it previously, it's deemed that the council considered the principle of development acceptable. So it just causes us challenge appeal should the applicant wish to appeal.
Councillor Stevens, did you want to?
So that's a risk, but not an absolute certainty that this would happen or that would happen. Is that is just a risk? Is that right?
I think the situation is that it could be challenged at appeal. If we were to include additional reasons, then the council would be at risk of costs in any future appeal.
Okay, just to clarify, the refusal was a delegated decision, wasn't it? Previous. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. I can't remember what month, but it wasn't very long ago that we had 2 stables on the one night. And I honestly can't remember the officer recommendation. I know one was against, I think that was in Plains Road, and it was enormous. And the committee passed that. And there was also one in Braxted Park Road, where, and I felt it was very unfortunate that the red line did not include grazing, sufficient grazing for the horses. And my one comment was pleased to see it here that there is in fact enough grazing. Not that it exists, but we can actually condition that it's accessible to the horses. So bearing in mind bearing in mind some of the applications that this committee does keep passing, and whether they're delegated or not, it's a decision of the council either way. I find it very difficult to argue against the officer's recommendation on this. Thank you.
Councillor Siddle.
Just to, the Plains Road one was refused, but it was based on highways saying that the road was, and access wasn't suitable. But that was the only reason it was refused.
No, that's useful clarification.
There were a lot of discussion, and members were very keen to approve it.
Thank you for that clarification. Members, any other questions? We are currently proposaless. Councillor White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm happy to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation of approval.
Do we have a seconder for that? Oh, okay. We'll take Councillor Morley. So we have on the table, we have a proposal to accept the officer's recommendation and approve this application. Those in favour, please indicate. 1, 2, 5. Those against? 2. Thank you. 5 to 2. An abstention? Councillor Siddle. Thank you very much indeed. That application is granted. Okay, members, the item 6, we have 23/00201 outline, and that is land west of Willows End, Stephenson Road, North Fambridge. Who's presenting this? Is this?
That's Lisa Greenwood.
Oh, okay. Good evening, Ms. Greenwood.
Can you see everything and hear me?
We can see it and we can see you.
Perfect. Okay, I will start then. Okay, this application is an outline planning application for 5 dwellings with all matters reserved.
Can members hear? No, we can't.
I need that one down there.
Sorry, Ms. Greenwood, we are struggling to, from a volume point of view.
Try now, Lisa.
That sounds.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Oh yes.
Oh, yes.
That's much better. Thank you. You'd like to start again? Thank you.
Okay, this is an outline planning application for 5 dwellings with all matters reserved at land west of Willows End at Stephenson Road in North Fambridge. Now the site itself is located on the northwestern side of Stephenson Road, just outside of the defined settlement boundary of North Fambridge. I'll just show you where that is in relation to the site, which is just here. The application site is located at the end of a run of houses and that are arranged in a linear formation. Stephenson Road is predominantly characterised by semi-detached and detached single-storey bungalows. The site measures 0.5 hectares in area and is roughly rectangular in shape. The site comprises of grassland and is bound by mature hedgerow. To the south and west of the site lie open fields, and to the north of the site is the Southminster branch railway line. Further south is the David Wilson Homes residential development scheme. This application represents a revised scheme across an extended site area following the granting of outline planning permission for the erection of 2 dwellings approved by this committee in November last year. As stated, the site is located just outside of the settlement boundary, which is classified for North Fambridge as a smaller village. There is, however, a train station located 250 metres, see if we can find it, 250 metres to the northwest of the site, which serves the Southminster line from Wickham to Southminster. There have been several recent decisions for residential development adjacent to the settlement boundary of North Fambridge, whereby the inspector has determined that these locations are relatively sustainable, being within easy walk of the station. The current application is located more closely to the station than these appeals, and planning permission was, as stated, previously granted at the site in November, particularly as the site was found to be sustainable. In terms of the sustainability credentials, the provision of residential housing in this location has been found to be acceptable in principle. With regard to the merits of the scheme, the proposal is outlined in nature and for 5 dwellings. The agent has confirmed that the maximum floor area across the development would be 950 square metres, and this can be secured via a condition. The built form of this section of Stephenson Road typically comprises of bungalows and chalet bungalows, and a condition would be imposed on any consent to ensure that the proposed dwellings would not be higher than 1 storey in height in order to protect the character and appearance of the area. The development would appear as a continuation of residential development at Stephenson Road and would be relatively contained by some hedgerow. In terms of the impact on residential amenity, a noise report has been submitted with the proposal, and this has been confirmed as complying with the relevant guidance. As stated at paragraph 5.4 of the report, should planning permission be forthcoming, a condition would be imposed with regards to a construction management plan to restrict working hours and control any nuisances. The proposal is also acceptable in terms of highways, ecology, flood risk and drainage, and there have been no technical objections received. The proposed development has been found to represent a sustainable form of development that would be in keeping with the prevailing pattern of development found at Stephenson Road. It is therefore recommended that outline plan permission is granted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. I take it we have no speakers. There's nobody here anyway. Unless anybody online? No, thank you very much indeed. I've got Councillor Morgan and then Councillor White and then Councillor Stevens. Councillor Morgan, you can go first.
I was quite simple, Mr. Chairman. I propose that we accept the officer's recommendation and pass this application.
Well, that again sounds like a proposal. Is that a seconded proposal? Councillor Thompson. Okay, thank you. If that's it, Councillor Miss White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well,
You don't need to stand, Councillor White.
well, I have to say, this is exactly what I feared would happen. And although highways don't comment on access, there is not enough access there to allow the safe ingress and egress of cars and fire engines and emergency vehicles. But because it's a private road, highways don't comment. And when we talk about D1 design, it also takes in safe vehicle parking. Now, if you look at the street scene and the design of the existing houses, they all go off individually off of that road. Now that ends, and there's a tiny square which they don't own, the applicants don't own. Although it's in the red line boundary, they don't own it. Now, I know we can't turn an application down, but have officers check the land registry to ensure that the red line boundary is owned by the applicants, because I've been told quite strongly that it's not owned by the applicants. That's the first thing. And the next thing is it doesn't meet the existing design. It doesn't meet the existing layout. It's completely incongruous. Because the existing design should be met. They should be coming off that one road to come into the driveways the same as all the other ones do, and yet you're completely changing the street scene for this peculiar development at the end of the road. And, you know, I didn't want this one approved the last time. Members outvoted me. That's the way it goes when it's democracy, but it doesn't mean to say that we have to be happy with them. And for me, that's enough of a reason to turn it down. So you've got D1, which is design, vehicle parking, accessibility, street scene, does not meet the street scene. T2, accessibility, there's not enough. If you look at the other houses, they've got plenty of room for emergency vehicles and they can park their cars. This, if there's cars parked in that road, which is the access road, is very close to where the indicative layout of the housing is. If their cars are parked there, which they'll have to, otherwise they won't have a front garden, you won't be getting any emergency vehicles or anything else in or out of that design. So for me, that's a safety and design issue. And I don't think we have enough information to determine an application. The other thing is that since the other application got approved, we now have a 6-year housing land supply, which puts us in a totally different position to where we were before. We didn't have a 5-year housing land supply then. Under section 5, which is ecology, and particularly 5.7.4, they don't appear to be showing any net ecology gains, and I haven't seen a nature matrix, which they should be doing on this site, bearing in mind it's so close to the seawall and it's developing into the open countryside and the flat landscape. So what I wanted to know is, have they done a biodiversity net gain, and what is the gain, and does it meet the guidelines for Natural England? And that's it really. So I mean, I would like to put forward a contrary proposal that the application be refused. I don't know if I'll get a seconder for that one, but
well, we've already got one. We'll come to yours if that one fails, Councillor White. Before We'll let Ms Greenwood come back. Of course, you can apply for land if it's not even under your ownership.
But they should serve notice, as far as I'm aware, they should serve notice on the landowner, because you must serve notice on the landowner if you're putting an application in over their land. I think it's a certificate B. So has the certificate B been served, or do we know if they own the land or not, or should we defer it and find out?
I can't answer that, but perhaps Ms Greenwood could. And of course, it being a private road, unfortunately, highways haven't got any. They haven't got any responsibility and can't comment except where it meets the highway.
Yeah.
So, Ms Greenwood, would you like to comment on those questions?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I mean, just in terms of the process of the land registry, I think perhaps Devon and Derek may know a little bit more owing to their experience at the council, but they have declared on the application form that they have served notice and that there was an advertisement in the Malden and Burnham Standard in February of this year. With regards to the design, this is only an application, this is an outline application. We aren't looking at the design at this stage, but what we have done is place conditions there which can control the height of the buildings. So we're not going to introduce two-storey dwellings here, they would be bungalows. And again, with the layout, that would be something that we would decide or that they would put forward at reserved matters. With regards to the turning, again, we're not looking at access, we're simply looking at the principle here. With regards to the 5-year housing land supply, yes, we do have a high 5-year housing land supply. However, this isn't a cap on development, and owing to the site's location, which is very, very near to the settlement boundary, it's regarded as a sustainable location, and this has been backed up by several appeal decisions, and also the decision of the committee in November of last year that this site was sustainable because it's within walking distance of the train station. With regards to our ecology at 5.7.4, they have submitted a preliminary ecology appraisal. We've undertaken a habitat assessment, and National England and Place Services Ecology have also reviewed the application, and they are very happy that they've got all of the information that they need. It is a requirement that we have all of the ecology in place before we can put a recommendation forward. They're happy that we have everything. We can secure the net gain to biodiversity. They have put suggestions in the appraisal via condition. And we're also in talks with the agent with regards to the RAMS tariff and checking and monitoring, and that is all in process as well. So I think we feel quite confident that those matters have been addressed.
So it appears they've ticked the boxes. Councillor Stevens, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. But
Somebody's got the light on. So,
Oh, sorry, that's me.
yeah, I'll let you come back in a second, Councillor White.
Thank you. Sorry, before I do come back, did one of the officers want to comment further on that? No, okay, that's fine. Okay, so I've got two sets of questions, please. And the first is around affordable housing. So the site is very, very slightly over 1/2 hectare. So it is a major application in National Planning Policy Framework, which in North Fambridge would mean 40% affordable housing. Now, our LDP may not require it, but national policy will always override. So I don't understand why we're not looking for affordable housing. And our own Strategic Housing Department has objected to this application because it's not intended to deliver any affordable housing. So I'd be interested in some comments on that, and then I've got a second set of questions.
Okay,
Thank
let
you.
Mr Lawrence, who's
Yes, I can answer that one. And what we would do by condition, if it's under 1,000 square metres, they do not have to provide affordable housing. That has been changed by the National Planning Policy Framework. In that respect, it overrides the requirement in our local plan.
So are you saying in that answer that they don't need?
They don't have to provide affordable housing. We will put a condition to ensure that no part of the development would exceed 1,000 square metres.
Right. Councillor Stevens, second question.
Okay, well, I just think that is something we need to look at more closely in drafting our new LDP, because I feel like we just lose affordable housing on a whim, really. Okay, so my other set of questions is all around the fact that it's a private, unmade road, and we see that Essex Highways haven't objected, and as we've already heard, well, they wouldn't, would they, because it's not their road. for a private road, I don't really understand why we don't afford the same weighting to private owners' views as we would to Essex highways. So I'd like to understand that better, because if Essex Highways said, oh, there's something wrong with this road, we can't sustain this traffic going over it, that we would really, really take notice of that, but we don't seem to worry so much when it's not Highways' view. I'd like to understand who's going to pay the existing residents to resurface the road when the construction vehicles damage it, because they will. And will that be reserved, possibly under reserved matters or something like that? I'd like to understand who will pay the existing residents going forward when the new residents' cars cause wear and tear on the road, because they will. And will that be conditioned? I want to understand if the existing stretch of road will still be just a private road, or will this development turn it into a private street, and will that affect residents' legal rights in some way? And for residents who might be listening now or watching this on catch up later, I would urge you to look into this. And finally, will the new residents automatically have the right to drive and walk across the private owners' pieces of land? Usually the private owners own the bit of road in front of their property. It might be different here, I don't know. But will the new residents have the automatic right to access their own homes, or can the existing residents prevent that? And should we take any of that into account, please? Thank you.
Gosh, okay, who's going to take that? Ms Greenwood or Mr Lawrence or?
Liz would like to start.
Okay.
Thank you, Derek. I mean, as stated, this is an outline application. We are only looking at the principle of development at this stage. We are not looking at anything else, although Highways have commented and said they don't object to the principle in that it's a sustainable location and they can see how, you know, there aren't any hazards and that it couldn't work. Most of this information will be secured via condition. They will have to come in with reserved matters applications, which will be assessed. With regards to new residents and whether they can drive over their own pieces of land, I would imagine that would be a personal or restricted covenant or something. I don't quite see why they would allow new residents to be walking over their land, or why they would want to. But we will have a robust construction management plan in place for the construction process and vehicles entering and exiting the sites. And that can include a whole array of things. So, but as I said, it's difficult to comment too much further because this is an outline application.
Yes, come back, Councillor Stevens.
Thank you. I'd just point out that where I was referring to the new residents having access over the existing residents' land, what I mean is the new residents going along that road. I imagine that the road is owned separately by each resident along there already. So if one of them wanted to, I guess they could set up a toll booth or something, or put a fence across the road. I don't know. I can just see problems where you suddenly start building extra houses on the end of a private road. Thank you.
Mr Lawrence, I think you.
Unadopted roads aren't particularly unusual. That the fact that each resident would have a right to use the road, the new residents would still have a right. The existing residents would not have their rights taken away. As to whether the road will be adopted in the future, that would be a matter for the resident, and that could be very costly. That's really outside of our concern, but it would not interfere with the existing residents' rights. Obviously, as Ms Greenwood has said, there would be a construction management plan. There would be a requirement for vehicles that would have to park off the private road. They would have to park on the site. So we would be able to control that aspect. But effectively, all the residents would be responsible for the maintenance of the road in the future.
Which would have to be secured by legal agreement, which is not our responsibility. I've got Councillor Morgan, I've got Councillor Miss White again, but I've got Councillor Thompson first.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I was assuming anything that's not actually included in the site has to be subject to some other legal arrangement that's not a planning matter.
Yes, there would be a legal agreement.
I might need some officer help on this one, Chairman, but I seem to recall we've been told in the past that housing mix should be agreed or should be defined at outline stage, because I seem to remember site in Wickham Bishops where we were told we couldn't change that at reserve matters, and they came forward as rather large dwellings. So I'm just asking, can we fix the housing mix and the numbers of bedrooms now, and could I have a reason why not if we can't? Thank you.
I think Mr Lawrence, you can answer that.
We could deal with that at the reserve matter stage, and I'm aware of other applications where we have secured that. We have an outline application. Once we get the reserve matters, then we can ensure that the mix is in accordance with the council's local development plan.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to say that unless the legal advisors of the existing and the new occupiers are completely useless, which is obviously always possible, there might be, they will make sure that there are rights of way, both existing and new, to ensure that everyone can pass to and fro across that private road, which would normally also include a covenant to contribute towards its maintenance and upkeep.
Thank you. Councillor Miss White.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I mean, I still don't think my questions have been answered about the biodiversity net gain and the nature matrix. We still haven't had an answer on that one, because the land is supposed to be left in a better condition for biodiversity than it was before the development happened, and I still haven't seen any one to that. And the other thing is, yes, this is outline, but I would like the officers to show me on that indicative plan how they're going to keep the housing in the existing line with the housing that's already in place, so you meet the street scene, and how you're going to turn a refuse lorry around, because the other houses could turn the refuse lorries, fire engines, everything else around in their driveways. And how is it going to happen here? Or are we not going to allow fire engines to go down, or they're going to have to try and reverse out around that tricky corner? Because from a design point of view, that doesn't work. And unless we can put in that on the outline stage, that there is a turning circle for large vehicles for safety, or whether we should defer it for more information on how the emergency and refuse vehicles are going to enter and exit the site. Because as it is, that there's no way with that indicative layout, I know it's outlined, there is absolutely no way that I can see that you're going to be able to get the emergency vehicles in and out.
Okay, who's going to handle that? Miss Greenwood or Mr Lawrence?
I think perhaps I can start and Derek can finish. I think this is an outline application. It's on a site that has planning approval for 2 dwellings. They've requested 5. We can see that 5 could be accommodated. If these matters can't be achieved at reserve matter stage, which we hope that they would, then they would have to think about the design again. But this is simply a matter of the principle of development at this point.
Okay, and the ecology question?
The ecology question, I mean, I can bring the report up here from Place Services. I don't know if you can see that, but there is no objection. This is very standard. I have to say these responses are actually incredibly thorough. There is no objection subject to securing a proportional financial contribution towards the Essex Coast Rounds. I'm in talks with them. I spoke with the agent today, and I'm very happy that will happen. And also the biodiversity mitigation and enhancement measures. Now, the measures they have set out quite clearly in terms of bird boxes, bat boxes, and different things like that. There is also a suggestion of a sensitive lighting scheme if external lighting is proposed, which it possibly will be. And then they have their suggested conditions at the bottom there, which have been applied to the outline planning consent. So from a local authority perspective, we have our technical response, and they have stated that we have the information that we need to determine the application. And based on other applications that have been before this committee with exactly the same responses, I think I would feel quite comfortable that we have the information that we need. But as stated, these are conditions. If they don't submit the correct information to satisfy these conditions, which will be reviewed not just by a planner but by a technical specialist or an ecologist, they will not be approved. So, they will have to present that information to us at a later stage.
Do you have anything to add, Mr Lawrence?
No, I think the response that Ms Greenwood has given is very thorough. In fact, I would add that when we do have to implement the biodiversity net gain in November, the scheme will also be administered by Place Services, so they will have even further control. So I'm quite satisfied the information meets the requirements.
I'm going to be very lenient and let you come back just one last time.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'd like to see a condition added. I mean, I don't support this application at all, but I would like a condition added that we see a full nature matrix and that we have a full nature matrix done so that we know what the biodiversity enhancements are, and we make that a condition of the planning permission. This is really close to a SSSI Ramsar site. We're only literally metres away from the river, which is SSSI. This is really sensitive, and this is why I didn't support the last application and why I don't support this one, because of where it is. And you can see what's going to happen. That whole lot's going to get developed. You know, that they'll keep coming back with 2 at a time, 5 at a time, so we don't get the affordable housing. All right, we can't say what's going to happen in the future, but I would like to see a full nature matrix in line with Natural England guidance and the NPPF.
Is that a reasonable condition? Or
Yes, we can impose
we
it.
can impose. Okay. Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Morley.
Yeah, out of interest, although it is a private road, are the emergency services consulted and refuse collected? They're not, no, because you can't turn down there, obviously. You have to reverse all, you do have to reverse all the way down. All my trucks have to.
Okay. Is it something new to add, Councillor Mrs Thompson?
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's following from Councillor Morley. Can we add that somewhere? Can we make sure they are consulted on this occasion?
Well, no, because that's a policy matter, isn't it, on consultation? That's not for this committee to change our consultation policy, as logical as it may seem. Right, is that... Right, fair warning, I'm about to call because we have... Yes.
Can we have a condition that there is a turning circle provided?
Emergency vehicles.
I think the outline is going to come into that.
It would be a requirement as part of the reserved matters. We can ensure that there is adequate provision for emergency vehicles and also for refuse vehicles.
Well, that's another matter. It's a private road, Councillor.
It is a private. It would be difficult to impose no parking.
And this is going to be the problem. It is a private road. It's not adopted.
Can we not put that condition in? Surely
Not at this stage.
Not at this stage. No, it wouldn't be.
Right, Councillor Siddle.
Yeah, surely we're now shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted because we've already passed the two properties on this site.
Yeah.
We didn't make that condition then. We can't make that condition now.
No.
So, you know, if we wanted to make that condition, we should have made that condition last year, not now. And unfortunately, it's too late.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Right, we have a proposal on the table, Councillor Morgan, seconded by Councillor Mrs Thompson, to approve in line with officers' recommendations. Those in favour, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those against. That's 3. Abstention. Councillor Morley. So that's 4, 3 and 1 for the clerk. 4, 4, 3 against, 1 abstention. So that application is approved. Okay, thank you very much. Let's go back to the agenda, I think. With some excitement, members. If I'm not much mistaken, we just... It is the longest day, Councillor White. We haven't got to worry about it getting dark and getting home. Okay, so item 7. Any other items of business that the chairman of the committee decide are urgent? Chairman, not chairman, I'm the chairman. Chairman, I do have one. Due to a change in responsibilities at Essex County Council, I think I'm pushing my luck retaining this chair. So this I am proposing to stand aside. I have yet to advise committee services that that is my intention. I spoke to the monitoring officer. That is the procedure. So I think what will happen is that there will be call for a new chairman of the North West Area Committee at the next meeting. So, yeah, I enjoy it. This is probably my favourite thing, but I've got to be realistic and just say that although this doesn't take up that much time, I do need to be careful and not overdo. Yeah, I can cope with SNR and there are certain synergies, but this is a different thing altogether. So that is my item of extra business, and I say I will notify committee services in due course. So thank you very much. We're still within 8:30, and I close this meeting at 8:25. Thank you very much.